So much, sir. Please let's be seated as we prepare for a very important discussion this morning, centering and bordering on health. We are observing the Health Week in ECWA Just DCC. Can we begin to organize this? And this morning we would conclude this week with a health discussion, a general health discussion. And by the grace of God, 3 people will be coming up to do justice to this issue. I will introduce them very shortly. But before I do that, I'd like to just say that we hope that we will open our hearts to be educated, to be enlightened, to be informed, even as this discussion progresses. Secondly, to also say to all of us that the opinions that will be expressed by this health personnel is the exclusive preserve of these same people. In other words, it is their expert professional opinion. It is not the opinion of the church per se. So we would ask members to listen, to process the information that you will receive, and that if there's need after the discussion, you may wish to see any of them or members of the health committee. Some of them are in the church. I can see Dr. Ezra Jato, Dr. Embu, Dr. Nimkuru, pharmacist Dogo. They are all here. You can see any of them for further discussions, or even better still, you may consult your own doctor. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord, church. So let me, without much ado, introduce our guests. We have with us this morning Dr. Nathan Ishaya, a consultant physician and infectious diseases specialist with the Just University Teaching Hospital. He's married with 3 children, and is a standing member of ECWA Plateau Church right here in Jos. His hobbies include chess playing, and he's very passionate about evangelism and Christian discipleship. Please, can we make him welcome one more time? You're welcome, sir. Also on the panel, I will be introducing, as it is my privilege, Dr. Abimbola Yewande Obioma, a family physician in training at Bingham University Teaching Hospital, Jos. Why are you not clapping well? It's not partiality. It's just, okay, married with 2 children. Is a member here. Hobbies include singing, listening to music. She also is actively involved in Christian discipleship. Someone said I should tell you that she's the beloved wife of the service elder. Okay, I just said I should tell you that. You're welcome, ma. God bless you. And last but not the least, we have with us our very own pharmacist Isaac Uteno, assistant director, consultant clinical pharmacist, also with youth, married with children, of course a member here, in fact a one-time board member of this church, served very meritoriously. Can we appreciate Elder Uteno one more time? Hobbies include listening to gospel music, which I was saying was very strange because of his voice, gardening, and playing table tennis. Please appreciate these wonderful people one more time. Okay? So without much waste of time, we will dive straight into the discussion, but just to also say to us that this discussion will be general. We are trying as much as possible to be very broad, to touch the most severe and pressing health issues, starting from the church to the city of Jos, and of course, the country at large. So I will be asking a question that has to do with the elderly. We will take it from our guest, brother, Dr. Nathan. Shehu. This question has to do with diabetes and hypertension. You have this this situation, as it were. Okay, a person in young age or young adult life doesn't have diabetes or hypertension, but with the onset of age, probably around 55 years, he goes to the hospital for probably a minor ailment, and he's told that he has diabetes or hypertension. So the question is, what is the reason for this? This is a member, an elderly member asked this question specifically. What's the reason for this?
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, church. Just to give some disclosure before we proceed, you know, the Bible tells us that we know in part and we prophesy in part. So it's what we know that we will, from the volume of the things we know, is what we will share. So regarding the elderly, in every form of disease, there are specific group of individuals that are at risk. So the elderly, once you cross from 45, in fact, at times from 40, it is expected that more people that are greater than 45 will develop diabetes or hypertension. So the lesson in this is that once you approach 40, it is very, very important that you do a regular screening, particularly for hypertension and diabetes. Because actually you may be sitting without knowing, and you may either have hypertension or diabetes. So the lesson here is that it's important to do regular medical checkup and to particularly check out for hypertension and diabetes, because it is associated with increasing age.
All right, thank you. And directing this question now to Dr. Obioma, if this is true, as he has informed us, as he has said, is there any correlation as to why diabetes and hypertension is implicated very seriously in COVID-19? With COVID-19?
Yes. Good morning, church. And before I answer, I would like to say that it's a great privilege and an honor to be here. Particularly the fact that one of our speakers is my lecturer. He taught me in school, and it's on his shoulders that I'm here today. So I'm very grateful, sir. Yes, hypertension and diabetes is implicated in the people having COVID-19, because one thing that happens with hypertension and diabetes is that the disease is a chronic disease, and so it has the ability to lower the immunity of that person. Okay? So once you have diabetes, you have hypertension, you are prone to have lowered immunity. And so it's easy for such patients to come down with certain diseases, especially COVID-19.
Okay. Okay. Tana, would you like to add anything to that?
Diabetes and hypertension, like Dr. Nita has said earlier, there are several factors that predisposes one to them. Age, like I said, is a very important factor. Race, we blacks are more likely to be hypertensive than non-black, and our body system do not manage salt well. That's a problem. It's most of us blacks. So now, like she has said, again, when you have these diseases and you are not on medication, diabetes and hypertension, they are not death sentences. You can live a normal life. And with those drugs, your immunity won't go down. The BP is maintained at the appropriate level, and then you can still be hypertensive, have COVID, and come out of it well. It will be as a result of the fact that your medication, your blood glucose is well controlled. But if you are any of these and you are not on medication, your blood glucose is
High.
fluctuating and wherever, and you now come down, then there's big problem. Even when you have one, if you are a diabetic and your blood glucose is not controlled, it's difficult to heal. So best advice is that we need to be on medication and regularly, not just for you to buy the medication and continuously taking without recourse to the doctor or your pharmacist for advice. Regularly visit them and regularly do a checkup.
Regularly do what? Regularly do check up, especially when you begin to approach 40.
and above.
Please, can we say it so that they
Especially like Dr. Nature has said, when you are 40 years and above. But sometimes you even have some people lower than that now. Formerly it used to be from that 40, but you see people from 20. I've seen people in the world with 20 something, whatever. So all of us, let's do a regular checkup.
Okay, thank you very much, sir and ma. So let's, while we still hold this on one hand, we mentioned COVID, okay, just a few minutes back. And this question is coming to Dr. Shehu. What are the fears associated with taking the vaccination? For Nigeria, among Nigerians, what are the fears associated with taking the vaccine? Are those fears genuine? Okay. And does it really prevent one from contracting the disease? That's taking the vaccine.
Okay. To start with, the challenge regarding fears emanated from even several controversies around the disease. Because first, people are not, there are some people that don't believe that there is anything like COVID. So why will someone ask you to take a vaccine of a disease that doesn't exist? But then other things has to do with the vaccine, that the vaccine, there's a microchip that will keep on monitoring you. That the vaccine contains the devil's number.
666.
666.
Yeah, let me call it so that.
Then other things include that it will change your genetic makeup and that you will die and all of that. Yes, so responding to this, for us, is the disease genuine? Is it a
fact, a
is
medical
it a
fact?
Is it occurring?
Yeah.
Of course, certainly, I've never seen a disease that manifests this way. That someone will just, several people, maybe if I ask the congregation, have you ever gone to hospital in the past 20, 30 years, 40 years to see like 20, 30 people on oxygen at the same time? So certainly it's a new disease. There's a new disease that is there. And the issue of vaccine hesitancy has been there over the decades, even before COVID-19. It has been there always. And vaccine, like drugs, pharmaceutical will note also that there is no drug, even paracetamol, that doesn't have side effects. So that is the fact. And nobody is saying that COVID-19 doesn't have side effects. But looking at the fact is that taking the vaccine is safer and prevents severe form of the disease than not taking it. Thank you.
Okay, still on this, thank you so much, sir. Still on this issue of COVID, is it possible that one of the reasons why there's hesitance on the part of the general populace, okay, to issues having to do with COVID, could it be that it is because of the somewhat cloudy nature, okay, the politics associated with COVID, its origins, okay? What do you think? What's your take on whether or not COVID was genetically or is a lab devised virus? Okay, did it escape from the virus deliberately, or was it a mistake? All of these things, and then the cover-ups, the things we are even seeing. I think in the NBC, even yesterday, in the U.S., it's a major matter in the U.S. So what's your take?
Okay, I will tell you what I know and what I don't know. And just to tell you that even yesterday, the Christian medical doctors on the plateau, in one of the fellowship, we had a discussion on this and presentation on this issue. So regarding the controversies, we know that medicine and politics are intertwined. Even before this COVID, there is no health problem that will arise that it doesn't have politics around it. So, but it's important that we give to the politics what belongs to politics and to our health what concerns our health. So regarding the origin, now let's look at both science and biblical knowledge.
Data, yeah.
Yes, the Bible tells us in Luke chapter 21 verse 11 that there will be wars and rumors of wars. There will be pestilences. So now the Bible has already clearly mentioned that in the last days there will be contagious disease. Now can you check your Bible to know that the Bible was written before COVID? Then now, let's flip back to the medical side. From historical perspective, right from the 1990s, there have been several outbreaks of epidemics that had engulfed the whole world. There are more than 10. And all of them had their origin natural. They mostly occurred from animals and then spill over to human beings. So from this, if we just look at history, it is very likely that even this COVID-19 may have developed naturally. But now let me shift to the other side. Now we know that there's advances in technology. Now we are in the era of bioterrorism. The question is that, is it possible for human beings and scientists to genetically modify a virus so that it can cause harm, so that it can change its behavior?
To enhance it.
To enhance it. Yes. That's why now we have to be more careful. When people are coming, people are screened for using metal detectors. But it is possible that someone may come with some fluid like this and be spreading. That is bioterrorism. So it is very much with us. So the question is that, is this one a bioterrorism weapon? Well, if we look at historical perspective, will we say that this is the first one that is achieving? We also know that of a fact that there are some diseases, infectious diseases that have occurred as a result of bioterrorism. The only thing is that it has not achieved global proportion. So, but as a medical doctor and a specialist in infectious disease, I would say from the available facts that I am privileged to have, there are some facts that I am not yet privileged to know. The tendency, and you know, in science, we talk about probability. There is high probability that it is likely to have emanated from nature. But of course, anything can happen. As I get more information, probably my perspective may change. But as of now, this is. But as a Christian, it's our duty to know the secrets. Because if you remember Joseph could interpret dreams. We know Daniel could know several things in administration. We know Elisha would know things that happen even in the enemy's camp. So it is up to you and I, probably more to us as health workers, to really go to God, because God actually is the father of science. He is the creator of everything. And he can reveal to us what is not known to many. So it is important for us, additionally, to also up our game, to become good scientists so that we can prove by ourselves some of the facts that are presented to us.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Dr. Bioma, you have managed, I believe, patients who came down with COVID-19. Would you like to describe to God's people your observation, what you saw, okay, as a prelude to counsel concerning the COVID-19 prevention protocols?
Okay. Honestly speaking, if you see a patient that has COVID-19, you wouldn't want it for any of your enemies. If you see a patient that is having COVID-19 symptoms. You see them breathless. So there's this sense of impending death or impending danger or doom. So they are restless. So even to fix the oxygen, they are struggling. They are trying to help them. They are just restless. Some of them are coughing. The cough is not even making them to breathe, which is worsening the breathlessness. Okay? There are some of them that have what we call non-specific symptoms. That's fever, headaches, purging, diarrhea, okay, vomiting. And so most of them will come and they'll tell you that I felt sick and I went to a chemist, I went to a primary health care center and I was treated for malaria and typhoid and I'm not getting better. And so by the time they come, they begin to have these symptoms of sudden breathlessness. Not because they inhaled anything, you know, and it's not a sight. Some of them will be on oxygen till they die, okay? While some of them would be weaned off the oxygen, but even after that, you would still see that there's some residue. There's still some signs of the infection that is still stayed or has still stayed in their lungs. And somehow those people are not themselves anymore. And prevention is better than cure. If you can prevent something, it saves you a whole lot. We've heard so much about wearing face masks, use of hand sanitizers, physical distancing. But somehow, because of how common it's becoming, some of us don't even believe anymore. Some of us don't even wear our face masks. Some of us, we turn our face masks to chin masks, okay? And then, if you know you don't need to be in a gathering or anywhere, I think it's better to stay at home. And I think it's something that is really very hard for the youths, okay? Some people are not happy that places of social gatherings have been closed down, restaurants, but the truth is that it's for our own good. We think that it's not in Plateau State, but if you don't believe, I think you can just take a walk to infectious disease unit in Bingham University Teaching Hospital. It's not very far, so that you can just tell them you want to see. Okay, so maybe it will be able to drive home the point that prevention is better than cure. How many of us have hand sanitizers? How many of us use the hand sanitizers? Some of us, we have face masks that we wash, we reuse, and at the end of the day, is it really achieving its aim or its purpose? Okay, so my take home is that prevention is better than cure. Do what you can to prevent yourself from getting COVID-19. And God will also do his part in taking care of you.
Thank you so much. This is to Dr. Otenno. I recall last year when COVID came on the scene, a few months, I think around August, September, we started hearing news about some drugs that could be used to treat COVID. Okay, I remember the former US president was one of those who was really pushing that. Drugs like hydroxychloroquine, dexamethasone, zithromas, zinc. Is it true, you are a pharmacist, sir, is it true that these drugs have some potency in curing one or, okay, from COVID?
Okay, you are almost becoming a pharmacist. I was wondering whether you are the pharmacist or myself. Okay, yeah, the drugs you have mentioned as part of the complementary drugs that are used when the person doesn't need to be on oxygen. They have proved useful in managing all the drugs you have mentioned, the zithromas. The zithromas is a drug, it's a macrolide, it's a drug that manages what we call upper respiratory tract infection. And in COVID, it has to do with the chest region and the breathing system. So if there are infections in those places, yes, it will be able to manage. Then the ciprofloxacin you mentioned is also a quinolone antibiotic, so it could also be useful in managing. The hydroxychloroquine,
the hydroxychloroquine, the popular.
Well, it has been said that, well, for us, it worked for Dr. Nathan is here. He manages the COVID patients, and when there were several controversies, but it is what was used, and it gave us good result. And I think what is important is the outcome. The outcome was good, and it is good. So those drugs worked somehow.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Dr. Nita, would you like to say anything about that? The drugs?
Well, just to note that anytime when there is a new disease, there are several scientists and several individuals will want to try one drug or the other. And actually, in the whole world, everybody was not sure of what to use. So, is to use what we have. And when we started using some of these drugs, and we discovered that it was working. Of course, when we say it is working, it doesn't mean that all the people that you give they will recover. And there are some of the drugs that someone who was well-to-do got it that they usually give outside the country, and we gave to someone, and the person, it didn't work for the person. So you can see that some of these things is a new disease. Some of these drugs work, some may not work.
Thank you so much. Ultimately, God is in control. We would try to tie two other very pressing diseases together: hepatitis B and cancer, generally cancer. A member sent in this question. I'd like to read it, sir. Saz and Ma. Says, concerning cancer, if a person's parent died of cancer, is it possible for the children to also face such? If the answer is yes, how can the issue be addressed early so as to avoid the same condition? Is there a way to screen for cancer? Okay, what is the cause? That's on one side. Then hepatitis B, like we said in the first service, has become a matter of public health concern, serious one. And would we like to very briefly but succinctly address these two issues?
Okay, yes. That's my answer. Yes. If someone's parent has cancer, is it possible for the child or children to come down with it? Yes. Okay. Especially first-degree relatives, they have the ability to come down with cancer. Okay, so if any of your parents or you know any of your first-degree relatives that have cancers, that come down with specific types of cancers, if you know of any of your relatives that has or is diagnosed with a cancer of any sort, I think it behoves you to go for checkup, for screening. So it means that, yes, there are ways to screen. Okay, we have types of cancers: breast cancer, cervical cancer, liver cancer, stomach or gastric cancers. Okay, so there are ways to screen. There are tests that are done to show if the person has the cancer or is at risk of having it. There are factors, there are things that predispose one to come down with the cancer too. Okay. I was discussing with a friend recently, and we're talking about the risk factors, how absurd it can be for some of those risk factors. For example, someone who has a blood group O, you are at risk of having certain types of cancers. So if you know that your blood group and your blood group is O, it's possible for you to have that kind of cancer. Do you understand? But then, there are some cancers that are not very common in our own setting. Okay, as blacks. And there are some that are very, very common. Okay, so I think it's, if you know anyone who has, out of your first-degree relatives, who has been diagnosed to have a particular kind of cancer, breast cancer, then that person should go and seek for screening so that we can pick it up early and begin to address it. Same goes with hepatitis B. It's a chronic disease. It's a chronic illness. And it stays in the system, in your body system, in the liver especially. Okay, it can be transmitted through body fluids, mother-to-child transmission. If a mother has hepatitis B, she can pass it on to her child. Okay, yes. So it's a chronic disease. However, because we do not have a very good health-seeking behavior in Nigeria, we normally wait till we have symptoms before we come to the hospital. Sometimes we may have the symptoms for quite a while, but we just find a way to sweep it under the carpet. We keep on taking paracetamol and believing God that we'll get well. But by the time we come, sometimes it's already late. And some of these infections in the liver, for example, hepatitis B, over time it can become a cancer. We call it malignant transformation. Okay, so it's possible that yes, you can even have a cancer from hepatitis. But like we said, prevention is better than cure. If you go and test for hepatitis, if it's negative, you take the vaccine. The vaccine is potent for 10 years, and then you can take a lifelong booster. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Shehu, maybe you speak about the severity. She has spent some time on cancer, the severity of hepatitis B, and the way we somehow tend to downplay its virulence now.
Okay. Just at times when we are given health information, someone now, if his first-degree relation died of cancer, now he will go back home and close down and be weeping, say my own has finished, and all of that. Please, it is the general. If you see, even if you read in textbooks or anywhere, you will see that the cause of cancer is unknown, but there are several factors have been implicated. And that's why one important factor is when you have relations, depending on the type of cancer that have, but of course there are several other things. So all that I'm saying is that don't be afraid. The reason why we are mentioning it, we are giving information so that you will do regular screening. But it's not 1+1. So having said that, hepatitis B is a big problem, much bigger than HIV. So, and the first challenge is that prevention is the best method, because once someone detects he has hepatitis B, it can be managed appropriately and it will prevent the serious complications of hepatitis B, like turning into liver cancer and advanced liver disease that may not be cured, may not be reversible. So the watchword lesson is that we must do regular medical checkup, including hepatitis B. Maybe I will ask, in this congregation, in the last 2 years, how many have done regular screening and including hepatitis B testing? Can I see your hands? So those who have not done it should do. Because now, if you have done it, the strategy, it's important that you note that if you have done it, you will, two possibilities, you are either positive or negative. If you are negative, then it is good that you receive immunization for hepatitis B. And if you are positive, you will need to go to a hospital and they will tell you whether your disease is active, requiring drugs, or inactive, that will keep on monitoring.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma. Pharmacist Tenor, does Goko cleanser, yo-yo bitters, what other Okoli, what's the other one? I'm not saying you take them. Okay, do these things help? Do they really help? Because many of us take such things because they are told that it will cure everything. It takes care of everything, even hepatitis B. There's one woman who is always speaking on this road. If you come here from Monday to Saturday, you hear her, am I correct? Advertising her wares in one particular car. I hope you understand what I mean. God bless you. Yes, go ahead, sir.
Well, there's no drug that can cure all diseases. Like the Yoruba will say, Gbogbo Nishe, there's actually nothing of that nature. Now, these cleansers, like I spoke in the first service, yo-yo bitters. If you look at I think they wrote the name in the botanical name. I've forgotten now, but it's just bitter leaf. It's bitter leaf. So will bitter leaf cleanse all our system? The answer is no. And so we need to be careful in these medications that have been uploaded that they can do all things. And I also need to add that we should be careful now. Dr. Bioma spoke about you keep taking paracetamol, wherever, assuming that it's a fever, wherever. Now, there's what we call responsible self-medication. Yes, self-care. You can't see something on your skin that is, dirty and you just overlook it. It is your responsibility to clean. Now, if you have maybe a headache, yes, you can take paracetamol. But in the advert for paracetamol, it says if you take it for 2-3 days and you are not getting well, then there could be problem. And you could do a misdiagnosis. So only work within the limit of what you know. Don't say because James took this for this, you take. That would be irresponsible. There could be misdiagnosis. You can take an overdose when you don't have adequate information. So it's important that you work within the limit and also consult either your pharmacist or your doctor if you need to do some of these things. But sometimes you need to go back to the hospital. So let's avoid too much self-medication. But you can take some things. It's not everything. Because when you free the doctors, the pharmacists to take care of more critical needs, they are using their professional knowledge to do more useful things than the one that, if you can. Sometimes you take this paracetamol, you are okay. But when you take it for 3 days, 4 days, you are still having the headache, please go to see the healthcare professional.
Thank you so much. We would gravitate to the very last major issue we have this morning, which is about suicide, okay, and young people. Suicide is becoming another issue of public, not even health now, but public concern. So the question is there any connection between contemporary culture, between social media, between the political climate, okay, just like we were praying earlier, and suicide? Is there any connection? What about the place of good parenting or bad parenting? How does it influence this scourge? We would all speak since we are parents, starting from Dr. Bioma. We have maybe 1.5 minutes each. Let's just hit the point so we are done. God bless you.
Okay, I'll just say that suicide and suicidal tendencies is just the root, it's just the branch, the leaves of a lifelong problem. Okay? If we don't address the root cause, we'll just be tackling what we are seeing. I remember 10, 20 years back, suicide was more or less like a taboo. You don't hear people going to commit suicide or this one committed suicide, and if you know anyone, any family that had someone who committed suicide, people didn't want to really associate with such families. But now, 2-3 years, it's beginning to become something normal, especially for the young ones. But I would like to come from this angle, this perspective. You see, as a family physician, we look at the patient holistically. Okay, there are 3 parts of a man. We have the spirit, the soul, and the body. Okay, we also have the biological, the psychological, and the social angle of every person. So if you see someone who probably attempted suicide, okay, there's something called deliberate self-harm. I would deliberately harm myself because I'm seeking attention. I'm trying to pass across the message. Probably I'm thinking that I've been talking too much and you're not listening. So I'll try to deliberately harm myself so that I can get attention. Okay, those kind of people, they don't intend to kill themselves. But somehow, it may go bad, and then it ends up becoming a suicide. Now, there are people who have suicidal tendencies. Some of the risk factors, it's multifactorial. If you look at upbringing, you look at the environment, you look at family life, you look at some illnesses that people could have. And then we look at coping mechanism. How well can people cope with stress? Those are some of the things that tend to push one to begin to think of suicide as an easy way of escape. However, for the youths, many of our parents, we say that we don't want our children to go through what we went through. Some of us suffered. We suffered to get to where we are. So we don't want our children to go through that kind of suffering. So we give them everything or almost everything that they want. So that when it comes to disciplining our children, we become very lax. Like I said in the first service, I remember years back, it was the exclusive of the community to correct a child when the child does something wrong. But these days, we see that even in schools, parents will tell the teachers, don't spank my child, don't punish my child. Or you tell the child to go to the naughty corner. And I begin to wonder what will happen to the child in the naughty corner. Okay, so somehow disciplining our children, we don't really want to go as far as doing that. I remember when I was serving, there was a woman who brought her 7-year-old son. What's wrong with him? That every time I tell him no, because he wants a candy or chocolate, he starts crying and he throws a tantrum and I don't know what to do. So she brought him to the hospital. So I begin to wonder. We asked her, is this your only child? No. Does he have elder ones? Yes. He even has a younger sibling. So it just shows that as parents, we have a whole lot to do. Like I also shared in the first service, 2-3 months ago, we've been having so many cases of suicide or attempted suicide at the hospital. One of the ones that was really striking was a 28-year-old man who has 2 children, okay? And he's been a welder for 8 years. And one fateful day, he decided to take rat poison. So he was brought to the hospital. So we tried asking him, why did you do it? And he said that his parents have money to help with his business. And he has spoken to them. But because they refused, he decided to take the rat poison. Now, this is a man who is married, has 2 children. He's 28 years. And the mother was there, and she said that she was the one that built the house he's living in with his family. So I began to wonder, is it exclusively the man's fault? No. There is a part to play as parents, as elderly ones to our children. So that when we begin to see certain type of traits, we don't just look at it and say, this patient is like this person is like this. We need to go back to the root and find out, why is this person behaving like this? Is it possible that this person has gone through a lot, or is not speaking out, or is seeking attention? Or the person is just outrightly being a teen, a youth, and I'm loving what media is giving me, and believing that everything media is saying is true, and I want to toe that line? There are a lot of things, there are a lot of questions. Time will not permit us to really talk about this. But truly, truly, there is a part that we have to play as parents, as elderly ones, especially to the youths. We had a discussion, we said that this is a Y generation. They always ask questions. When they ask questions, are we able to give the right answers, or we allow them to go and get it from their peers? Because there's so much peer pressure. I want to be like my colleague. I want to be like my friend. I want to be, what's the word?
A happening person.
And then we miss out on our children.
Thank you so much. Parents here, please note the main thing, the point she has stated. Don't groom your children to have or develop entitlement mentality. They are not entitled. Is it clear, sirs? Is it clear, Maz? So, the Lord bless us. We will take our tenor, and then Dr. Shehu will cap it up.
Yeah, on suicide, yes, like she has said, there are several factors. And the time and environment is also part of the problem. There are several stressors, things that, impinge on our livelihood for us to live normal lives. Every day you wake up, you hear news, how many people have been killed. It's a stressor. And so we also need to find a way of moving away from this stress. Sometimes I was somewhere yesterday and somebody said, he was told, he attended the seminar and said, learn to switch off your phone. Maybe 4 hours or some hours or whatever. You will not die. Before phone, we were living, isn't it? And we can even make some few hours without it. The world will not stop running because you switched off your phone. So, and some of this, every second you're on the phone is a stressor. So these are also part of the problem. Now, for young people, parents have a responsibility to you. You also, as a child, you also have a responsibility to your parents. So it's vice versa. Now, your parents have gone ahead of you. They have the experience. They've passed through certain parts in life. And all that they are trying, now, no matter how good and how bad your parents are, except a few, in 100 parents, the one that, parents, today there are some information you hear that 40, 30 years ago, you will not hear any parent do those kind of things. But they are happening in this time because of the time we live in. But be that as it may, parents want the best for their children. And I want children to know, whether you're a youngster, you're a toddler, or whatever, your parents want what? The best for you. And so take to their instructions. Sometimes, it may look hard, but as hard as it is for your own good. There's a story I'm sure some of us have read on social media. That young man who went for an interview, that the father had disciplined well, or let me not say discipline, but have trained well. But when he was being trained, he felt that his father was very hard, wicked. He came through the gate. The first thing he saw was a tap flowing. He picked it off the tap. The panel of interviewers were just watching him from the gate. As soon as he landed, they said, "When are you going to resume work?" And he was surprised. He said, "When are you going to resume work?" How did he get it? Because of the training. He has allowed himself to be trained by his father, who he assumed was wicked, strict disciplinarian. So let's learn to follow them. Our parents may have their own idiosyncrasies wherever. There's no perfect, but follow them. And as you follow them, we will make our life better. Now, peer pressure, drugs, and those things can help in leading us to suicidal ideation. So we must learn to, I think it's 1 Corinthians, is it 15? Evil communication corrupt good manners. So our company is also very important. If we keep good company, we also learn to share. Now, your father is not wicked, your mother is not wicked. This is the best person you can ever relate any of the problem you have as a child or youngster to. And whether you are falling, if you come and say, "Daddy, sorry, when you were not around, I took meat from the pot, which I didn't, I'm not supposed to, I'm so sorry." You will understand. You have even come openly. They will understand with you. We only tell you, don't take meat from the pot again. When you want to do, tell mommy or tell wherever. Whatever you do, let these people be your confidant, and it will help in preventing suicidal ideation, no matter the pressure. Again, God Almighty is overall, and He loves you. Whatever the enemy tells you, that no, your pressure, you are the only one facing this thing, know that is a lie from the pit of hell. And if you are, there's something God told me several years ago, very young then, that if I am the only person in the whole wide world, Jesus will have still come to die for me and for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dr. Shehu, your thoughts?
Okay,
Yes.
just the summary of the issues surrounding suicide. As far as the youth are concerned, the youth factors that relate with youth. Just 2 days ago, I was speaking with some young people. I was saying that the youth think that life is a straight line graph. After 5 years, I'm finishing primary school. This year, I will go to the university. I will marry. I will do this thing. I will buy a big phone. I will buy a big car. And that is it. And that is one factor. Second factor is that how our society is becoming godless. The God factor is being removed by force. And our elderly ones, we don't tell them our downside. our failures, our mistakes. Then the other factor has to do with we don't serve as good role models. The young ones have questions, we don't answer them. We are not portraying the character of Christ. A young man doesn't want to say that this is my father. A young man will see adults not behaving well. Our parents may be so hard on their children. They will demand so much, just like Pharaoh demanded on the children of Israel. So it's a great pressure. Then on the flip side, it's not only young people that are having suicide. Elderly ones, in fact, in my experience, even as over 24 years ago, one elderly woman called me and said, please help me to die. So it will surprise you that there are several deaths that happen. They were deliberate suicide. I remember one time at youth, we were rushing, someone was brought unconscious. We were rushing, trying to resuscitate him, to bring him to life. After we have succeeded and he was awake, we were happy. Then he was sad. He said, why am I alive again? So So when the issue of suicide, the last factor that I will emphasize is that suicide may be as you said, it's usually the later part. But maybe it may start as a sickness. It may start as a problem. You will see someone coming to church, he's a very outgoing person, very lively person. When praise worship is going, but you will see the person is quiet. He doesn't want, they say, me, I don't want problem. I greeted him and the person didn't greet back. Well, I will just mind my business. But instead of us to reach out. So it is important for us to note that there are problems. In fact, about 2 or 3 months ago, someone who attempted suicide, I sat down with him. He came to my consultation room. And if we check about what he was able to achieve as a young man, many young people have not achieved that. But as I sat listening to him, I could clearly see there was so many things are wrong about his thought process. I don't want to tell you how he tried to kill himself, but it is absurd. So it's important to know that when you see people attempt suicide, don't shout them down, don't condemn them. Try to bring them and see what is the cause and treat it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, panelists. We have so many questions, but maybe the committee would have to look into how this can be addressed. Like I said earlier from the very beginning, if you still have questions, these are brethren. Please, you may contact them. In fact, the committee members and the congregation, Dr. Ezra Jatau is there, Dr. Henry Embu, Pharmacist Jonathan Dogo, and several others. Pharmacist Onogu is there. They are all in the congregation. You can also contact them for further information. In summary, let us take responsibility for our health. Let us also take responsibility for the health of the next person. Please, can we appreciate this wonderful panel? The wonderful applause. Thank you so much for availing yourselves. The Lord bless you.